Okay guys, so I have books 1, 2, and 3, and then I also have the teacher's guides for 1, 2, and 3. So we are going to go through these. Now, as far as cost goes, you can get these pretty much brand new for around $10, $12. I pretty much bought all of mine used. I think the only thing that I bought new was maybe the teacher's guide for book 3. Everything else I got used on eBay. So very cost effective. You could easily, I'm gonna take you to look inside, but I think you could probably easily do these on a whiteboard together, and so you don't have to actually write in these books, but they are meant to be consumable. So we are going to start with book 1. This is going to be your 2nd grade level. Now, I'm probably not going to start my son in this until about 3rd grade, and I'm actually going to be going over this possibly with my 6th grade son just to fill in any gaps that we may have. Now, if you're like us and you came from like an IEW type of background, I think this is probably going to be a little bit more traditional in its approach. But I don't think that there's anything wrong with kind of combining a couple of different ways of writing. I think for my son in particular, he likes a specific step-by-step process. I think IEW does a good job with that, but I think that he wants a little bit more of some room to do what he wants to do, whereas IEW is more, okay, you need to take this story and rewrite it, versus so now that he's had a little bit of experience with that, he wants to write some of his own things, and I kind of needed a guide to do that. So now, I'm not gonna lie to you, I don't know if I can't remember if it came with some markings inside the book or if that's my daughter's handiwork, but there's a couple pages here. So when you are getting started, you're gonna talk about brainstorming, categorizing, and using a web, writing a story, topic, sequence, story planning, another look, characters, feelings, setting, problem, conclusion, capitals and basic punctuation, using your senses, paragraphs, indenting, topic, sentence, supporting details, telling more, expanding with details, word choice, overused words, using comparisons, editing and publishing, selecting a story, revising the content, editing, choosing a title, publishing, about the author, my brainstorming ideas, and story starters. So you have your chapter, you have a little bit of information about what brainstorming is. It gives you some examples, and then these are your exercise spaces. Now, as you can see, these are the lines with the dots in the middle. So this is definitely more for like your 2nd, 3rd grade level. Okay, so it's pretty much the same thing throughout. You have your topic, you have your information, your examples, and then your exercises that go with it. So a lot of these, they give you different categories or groups, but for the most part, your kids can pick different items that they want to choose, which is something that my son really wanted. He wanted to have a little bit of freedom with what he was writing. I think looking at this a little bit more in depth now, this is probably going to be way too simple for him, so we might start in book 2 or 3, but this is definitely going to be good for 2nd, 3rd, maybe even 4th graders. If they have no prior writing experience. So I wanted to show you the teacher's guide that goes with this. Now, a lot of people will say, do I need the teacher's guide? That is a bit subjective, because I like to have the teacher's guides just in case. I have had a child who cannot get something the way that they're supposed to, and it's sometimes hard for me to think outside the box to help them, and having a teacher's guide is helpful for me sometimes because it gives me alternatives. So for instance, this talks about a little bit about how to use the book. It's going to give you exercises and extension activities. So if you have a student that really struggles with writing and you just want something simple and easy, I think this would be a good place to start. And there are different exercises and extensions. So you can do these things on the whiteboard together before you start with things. brainstorm ideas for what to write about. You could generate some ideas with a discussion, ask some leading questions. There's story starters on page 140 that they can add and use too. So let's go look at that really quickly. So here are some story starters in the back that might be helpful for them. There's that about the author page, brainstorming ideas, a couple of the other pages that are available. So this, again, this is very inexpensive to get both. If you find it used, they may already have both. I believe I got books 1 and 2 used, and it came with the teacher's guide. So I didn't have to pay any extra for those. It also has answer keys in the back. I'm not sure that you would actually need them, but they are there if you do need them. And then also in the back, they have some extra story webs, story plans, character webs, and content checklists. And then an editing checklist. So these are usually pretty helpful for parents, I feel like, to have the content and editing checklist just to see very easily what they are supposed to be doing. So that is a little bit inside book 1. Book 2 follows right behind. This is designed for a 3rd or 4th grader. And in this book, you will be working with sentences, reviewing capitals and basic punctuation, what is a sentence, working with describing words, writing interesting sentences, combining your sentences, sentence checklist, working with paragraphs, what is a paragraph, supporting sentences, writing your own paragraphs, ending a paragraph, how-to paragraphs, paragraph checklist, working with words, overused words, using comparisons, writing a story, story planning, starting your story, characters, dialogue, writing from a different point of view, feelings, senses, setting, problem, conclusion, editing and publishing, finalizing the content, content checklist, editing checklist, publishing, and then resource materials, story web, story plan, story mountain, story map, story starters, synonyms, and glossary. So there is an introduction here. So from what I can see, it seems like it is review from book 1 as well as taking those same concepts a little bit further. So you're probably going a little bit deeper into each topic. So they, again, follows the same format. You have what you're going to be doing and then a little bit about it. Then it's got some examples. And then you are going to be doing your practice. So now we no longer have the lines with the dashes. Now we just have solid lines. And then we have, even on some of our exercises, we don't have any lines at all. So there is a little bit of grammar in here. I would definitely say, you know, we're talking about adjectives, but this is definitely designed to accompany your writing. I would not use this as just a grammar program. So somebody in the comments had asked, is this just like writing prompts? And the answer is no. This is going to teach them step by step how to write. So if we go to the back, this book is also quite a bit thicker, I would say, than the other book. It seems maybe not a ton thicker, but it feels thicker. So here in the back, we're writing 4 or 5 sentences. So by the end of this book, they are writing a paragraph. We have our editing checklist again. We're doing situations and problems. We have our story mountain. They're going to be writing longer stories. We have story maps, editing and publishing. We have our content checklist, our editing checklist, publishing. We have those resource materials for extra help. And then we have synonyms in the back that can help them beef up their writing a little bit. So let's look at the teacher guide for book 2. Again, very similar. There is a little bit more to what they're telling you to do. But again, it seems to be the same thing. This is just exercises and extension activities. But there is a little bit more that they're explaining to you, giving you to use the information, and then the answer keys again. And again, those extra checklists and those extra printables that you could copy. Now, book 3 actually feels substantially smaller compared to the other 2, and this is going to be geared towards your 4th through 6th grader. So this is where you start to get into your different types of writing. So we have the kinds of writing, reasons for writing, narrative writing, so fictional, personal narratives, non-fiction narratives, descriptive writing, expository writing, persuasive writing, and then our resource materials again. So we have, we're talking about the story elements, fictional stories. Here's the story that they're going to read. We're going to identify the main elements of the story. We have our exercise, and now they're much smaller lines. And we have our editing checklist. And then we have this by the end of the first activity. Then they're going to go into narratives, and it's pretty much the same thing over and over again. But again, this is giving them quite a bit of freedom to write what they want to write about. So I think this is going to be very good for my son and maybe any kids out there who just want that freedom but need the boundaries of it. I know some kids need to know exactly what to write about, and so I think IEW is great for that. But if you have a child who is very creative, loves to make their own stories, but wants to get better, this could be a good option for them. It's very inexpensive, as I said. It's very simple, to the point. We have not used this yet. We will not be using this until our next school year, so in June. Or we probably won't even start this until July, probably, but late July, early August. But they have you writing a poem. I definitely think that this is going to work great for him, and this doesn't look like it would take more than about 15-20 minutes depending on what you're doing for that day. I can let you guys know more once we actually start using this though. So let's go to the back. They are doing journal entries and things like that. Here's our writing a letter. So in the back we have those resource materials, having commas, lists, combining sentences with conjunctions, sample letters. We have our KWL charts, our glossaries, and then let's look into our teacher's guide for this one. So again, we have our introduction. We have our exercises and extension activities, and again, they're a little beefier than the first teacher's book, but I wouldn't say a ton more than the second book. Maybe a little bit, depending what the topic is, for things like similes and things like that. And then at the end, we just have the checklist. So there is no answer sheets because there's nothing to fill out. We have our writing process right here that tells us to plan a story using a story, web, or map. Writing your first paragraph, introduction, second, begin action, middle paragraphs, and last paragraph, conclusion, are revising, editing, and publishing. So this is really good for, again, students who really need that step-by-step process. We have our content checklist and our editing checklist, and that is it. So I would definitely say, after looking through things a little more thoroughly, that books 1 and 2 are more of how to write, what you need to do, learning those step-by-step processes, and book 3 is putting it all together into your different forms. So I feel like for my son specifically, he probably will need book 2, fill in some gaps of kind of the planning process and things like that, and then he would be able to jump right into this book. Whereas my son, who is going into 2nd grade, if I wanted to start him, I would definitely need to start him here, and he would probably need to work through this very slowly, or maybe not slowly, but I definitely think that this would be perfect for a 3rd grader or 4th grader to start this way, and then you would still get through all 3 books by the time they would be done in 6th grade.